Blöder jättemycket. Vad fan har hänt? Emma.
Arboga, Sweden, March 17th, 2008. It was a cold, ordinary night for that time of year. Inside the warmth of her home, a young mother was caring for her two children. Emma Jangestig, 23, mother of Max, age 3, and Saga, just a year and a half, was having what seemed like a completely normal evening. Emma was preparing dinner, waiting for her fiancé, Thorn Hellberg, to come home from work. While cooking, she was also chatting online with her sister Katarina. They were making plans for their parents' upcoming wedding anniversary. But suddenly, at exactly 7:07 p.m., the conversation stopped mid-sentence. Silence. Katarina immediately found it strange. She sent another message asking if everything was okay. No answer. She tried calling Emma several times, but every call went straight to voicemail. Katarina began to panic. Desperate, she called Thorn, who was on his way home. Thorn tried to reassure her. Maybe Emma had left her phone charging, or maybe she was just distracted with the kids. But when Thorn finally got home, he found the front door unlocked. That never happened in their house. He called out for Emma and the children. No answer. The silence inside was unsettling. A chill ran down his spine as soon as he stepped inside. The house was completely trashed. At first, he thought maybe the children had gone wild with their play, but within seconds, he realized the destruction was far too severe for that. Then, something caught his eye at the far end of the room. It was Emma. She was lying on the floor, almost unrecognizable. Thorn froze in shock, but then he remembered the children, Max and little Saga. Heart racing, he rushed upstairs. As he approached their room, panic consumed him. What he found was a scene no one should ever witness. Max and Saga lay on the floor, covered in blood, their heads and faces brutally destroyed. Before we go deeper into the investigation, we need to rewind time to fully understand this case. Emma Jangestig was born on February 16, 1985, in Stockholm, Sweden's capital. From a young age, her dream was simple: to have a family and a modest home. For a while, everything seemed to be falling into place, just as she wanted. At 19, she married her high school sweetheart, a young man named Nicholas, believing it was the first step toward building the future she longed for. Not long after, their first son, Max, was born. A sweet boy with curious eyes who changed everything between them. Life became more exhausting, but also happier. About a year and a half later, little Saga arrived. But instead of peace and stability, their home turned into a battleground. Immaturity, exhaustion, and the daily struggles of parenthood fueled constant arguments. Soon after Saga's birth, the couple decided to separate. It wasn't an amicable split. Their fights carried on into court as they battled over custody and child support. At one point, Nicholas even said he wanted to reconcile, but by then, Emma wanted nothing to do with him. She made the decision to move on with her children and start fresh elsewhere. She chose Arboga, a small, quiet town of about 11,000 people, located roughly 93 miles from Stockholm. Arboga was the kind of place people sought for peace and security, a place where no one expected anything bad to happen. But that would soon change. It was there that Emma met Thorn Hellberg, a kind, hard-working man. They first connected online, and quickly realized they wanted to be together. At first, Emma worried. Would Thorn accept the fact that she already had 2 children from her previous relationship? But to her relief, Thorn welcomed Max and Saga as if they were his own. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt she had found the right person. Their relationship began just a year after her divorce, and everything moved fast. Within 2 months, they bought a house together and began planning a future. Their wedding was set for the summer of 2008. Everything pointed to a true fresh start. But that dream was shattered on that freezing March night when Thorn returned home from work. He found his family almost completely destroyed. Even in shock, he managed to call emergency services. When paramedics arrived, the scene horrified them. It looked like something out of a horror movie.
Ja, hjälp! Verktygsgatan 2B Arboga. 3 personer. En blöder jättemycket. 2 barn. Max.
Ta det lite lugnt nu. Vart är du någonstans?
Verktygsgatan 2B i Arboga.
Vad är det som har hänt där då?
Jag vet inte. 2 barn. 1,5-åring. Och en... Shit, det ser ut som hackhål i. Vad fan är det här? Okej, vänta. Jag måste bara lägga ifrån mig telefonen en liten stund.
Ja, jag väntar.
Kom igen.
Kniv, ja.
Vad fan har hänt? Emma.
Hallå?
Emma.
Hallå, hittar du dem nu eller?
Emma.
Yet, despite everything, all 3 were still alive. Emma and the children were rushed to the hospital and placed in intensive care. Doctors told Thorne their chances were slim, and even if they survived, they would likely suffer permanent damage. While doctors fought to save Emma and the children, detectives began piecing together what had happened inside the house. The more they examined the scene, the more disturbing it became. There were no signs of forced entry, no footprints or blood from anyone outside the family. Nothing suggested a random burglar. It was clear to detectives this wasn't a robbery. Wallets, jewelry, and valuables were all untouched. Nothing was missing. This had been a targeted attack. Someone wanted Emma and her children dead. Police believed the weapon had been something heavy, like an iron bar or hammer. The attacker struck Emma and her children multiple times with clear intent to kill. Unfortunately, in their desperate attempt to save lives, paramedics had unintentionally disturbed the crime scene, slowing down the forensic work. Even after a thorough examination, investigators found nothing significant. No fingerprints, no stray hairs, no DNA that didn't belong to the family. Officers began to suspect the killer was someone the family knew. Their first suspect was Thorne Hellberg. He had called emergency services at 7:20 p.m. Emma had stopped replying to her sister at 7:07 p.m., just a 13-minute window. To police, that suggested only someone familiar with the house and the family's routine could have committed the attack so quickly and escaped unnoticed. Everything pointed to an insider, someone with access, knowledge, and motive. But Thorne's co-workers confirmed he had worked his full shift that day. Security cameras along his route home also showed him driving during the critical time frame between 7:07 p.m. and 7:08 p.m., making it impossible for him to be the killer. He arrived around 7:20 p.m. and immediately called emergency services. With that, Thorne was cleared. Investigators believed it was very likely he crossed paths with the attacker on his way home without realizing it. Their second suspect, Nicholas, Emma's ex-husband. Police were certain the crime was personal. Since nothing was stolen, it had to be either revenge or a maniac on the loose. But first, they had to look closely at the people closest to Emma. Nicholas and Emma had a troubled history. Their fights were well known. Emma had even once filed a complaint against him for assault. To investigators, Nicholas could have committed the crime out of revenge, but after checking, they confirmed Nicholas had been in another city at the time of the attack. He was ruled out. Thorne also told police that he got along with Nicholas by then and believed he would never harm his own children. With Nicholas cleared, police spoke with Emma's friends, family, and neighbors. They were searching for anyone who might have had reason to hurt her. Everyone agreed Emma had no enemies. The only person who came up was Nicholas. But since he was cleared, detectives were left with no leads. After giving his statement, Thorne was so shaken he couldn't even drive. Emma's father had to pick him up. Inside the car, silence weighed heavily. No one could speak. Hoping to break it, Emma's father turned on the radio. Instead of music, a news report came on. The announcer described the brutal attack in Arboga, naming Emma and her children as the victims. Then came the devastating update. Max and Saga had succumbed to their injuries just minutes earlier. Hearing this, both Thorne and Emma's father broke down in tears. Their world had collapsed. Just hours earlier, those innocent children had been playing happily in their home. Now they were gone. The whole case made no sense. Nothing about it did. Because of the enormous impact of the case, the Arboga police faced pressure like never before. With no strong leads, they decided to focus again on Nicholas.
Vi har nyss fått reda på att dina barn har avlidit av sina skador. Och jag bröt upp totalt. Men jag fick ju inte direkt någon lugn stund för mig själv, liknande ungefär på sin höjd 2 minuter efter det. Så kastade han i mitt ansikte att åklagaren vill anhålla mig för misstänkt för mordet. Eller för 2 mord och mordförsök på Emma.
Vad tänkte du då?
Då försvann jag. Så vet jag inte vad han sa eller liknande. Jag blev väl mer eller mindre svårt chockad över att ens få det kastat i ansiktet. Som så. Efter en stund, jag vet inte alls hur lång tid det kan inte, det känns som en hel evighet då, men så frågan hur jag ställer mig till det. Då sa jag en jävla dum fråga. Jaha, hur ska jag tolka det? Jag har inte gjort någonting, jag har varit emot hela dagen.
Even though he had already been cleared, Nicholas had been in another city when the crime happened, so it was impossible for him to be responsible. Still, police held him in preventive custody and questioned him once more. Having just lost his 2 children, Nicholas was devastated. He trembled, cried, and could barely answer the officers' questions. He was worse than before. At least previously, there had been some hope the children might survive. Now, he was completely broken. Police soon realized they would get nothing useful from him. After checking again, it was undeniable Nicholas was not involved. He was released, and once more the investigation hit a dead end. Investigators were out of options. Media pressure grew every day. The only hope left was for Emma to wake from her coma and possibly reveal what had happened. But doctors were cautious. They told police that even if Emma survived, she might suffer permanent damage. Paralysis, loss of speech, and memory problems. They also warned it was unlikely she would remember anything, since she had suffered severe brain injuries. From the very first day Emma was hospitalized, police placed a team to guard her and her children, fearing the attacker might return to finish the job. After Max and Saga passed away, the focus shifted fully to Emma. Officers strictly controlled who could enter or leave her hospital room. Meanwhile, fear gripped Arboga. The idea of a maniac on the loose changed everyday life completely. Parents kept children indoors, neighbors double-checked their locks, and the usually quiet streets emptied at night. Despite having no real leads, police refused to give up. They launched a joint effort with officers from nearby towns, going door to door in the neighborhood around Emma's home. They asked residents if anyone had seen suspicious activity that night. They also reviewed more security cameras, not just near the house, but across a wider area, hoping to track the killer's movements. Police even brought in tracking dogs, searching every bush, alley, and trash bin for the missing weapon, believed to be an iron bar or hammer. But nothing was found. A second, more detailed forensic sweep of Emma's house turned up only one new clue. A small shoe print that did not belong to anyone in the family. Judging by the size, investigators believed it belonged to either a child of around 10 to 12 years old or a short-statured woman. They didn't consider it significant, probably from a recent visitor, but still logged the size and sole pattern. Days passed, the case grew colder, and the media frenzy only intensified. Security experts filled talk shows, speculating endlessly, while the public demanded answers. The question haunted everyone. Who could have done this? Then finally, a breakthrough. A man came forward, telling police he had walked past Emma's house around 7 p.m. the night of the crime. He saw someone standing on the sidewalk in front of the house. The person was dressed all in black, hood up, hesitating at the door. When the man returned from a quick trip to the supermarket, about 10 minutes later, he saw the same figure running from the house and jumping into a car that sped away. He couldn't make out the face, nor the car's model. But he was sure about one thing. The figure was a woman. For the first time, the case had a real lead. Detectives shifted focus, combing through lists of women connected to Emma, checking alibis, and cross-referencing names. Meanwhile, at the hospital, hope began to stir. Emma's condition, though still in a coma, showed small signs of improvement. On March 27th, 10 days after the attack, doctors decided it was time to try waking her. They slowly reduced her sedatives, carefully allowing her body to readjust. The family and investigators waited anxiously. Finally, Emma opened her eyes. At first, she couldn't speak, but she responded with her gaze, recognizing faces around her. Doctors insisted extreme caution was needed. Emma was fragile, physically and emotionally. Under no circumstances should she be told about her children. At least not yet. But after 3 days, detectives entered her hospital room. They began speaking to her slowly. That's when the worst happened. Emma remembered nothing. Confused and desperate, she kept asking about her children. Doctors realized they could no longer hide the truth. They told her Max and Saga were gone. Emma was devastated. Emma refused to believe what she was told. She wished it was just a nightmare, but tragically, it was real. Then, on April 1st, a breakthrough came. Emma finally began to remember what happened that night. She told police that while chatting online with her sister, she heard a knock at the door. When she opened it, she came face to face with a hooded figure dressed all in black. The person simply said her name was Tina. Then, without warning, she struck Emma with a hammer. Emma said she lost consciousness immediately. That was all she could recall, but it was enough. It confirmed the attacker was a woman. Investigators then showed Emma photographs of various women they considered possible suspects. Among them was Christine Schurer. The moment Emma saw Christine's photo, she didn't hesitate. She pointed and said, "That's the woman who knocked on my door that day." But who was this woman? And why would she commit such a brutal act? Christine Schurer was a 31-year-old German woman with a troubled past. When she was 11, her father abandoned the family, leaving deep emotional scars. Christine lived an intense, restless life, moving from New York to Greece, working on archaeological digs and in hotels. She hated standing still, always craving change. To outsiders, she seemed cultured and adventurous. But beneath that surface, she was possessive, controlling, and vengeful. Her relationships followed a pattern: fast, intense, and always ending badly. She couldn't handle rejection, something experts later linked to her father's abandonment. It was in this context, in August 2006, while working in Greece, that Christine met a Swedish man named Thorn. Yes, the same Thorn who would later be engaged to Emma. Thorn was on vacation, staying at the hotel where Christine worked. They quickly became involved in a short 5-day romance. When his trip ended, he returned to Sweden, but they stayed in touch long distance. Christine, however, was already obsessed. Not long after, she flew to Sweden unannounced to visit him. Thorn, caught off guard, let her stay out of politeness. But soon, he saw her darker side. Christine was demanding, jealous, and suffocating. After 5 months, Thorn ended the relationship. He broke up with her over the phone while she was back in Germany. Christine was furious. She refused to accept it. She began bombarding Thorn with calls and messages. When he blocked her number, she got new ones. When he changed his number, she sent letters directly to his house. begging for another chance. In March 2007, she showed up in Sweden again, convincing Thorne to meet for dinner. She promised it would be as friends, but afterward pressured him to reconcile. Thorne stood firm. He wanted nothing more with her. The very next day, Christine called saying she was lost near a castle and couldn't find her way. Worried, Thorne went to help. When he found her, she was unconscious in her car, having swallowed a large number of pills. It was a suicide attempt, triggered by his rejection. Thorne rushed her to the hospital and later took her to her parents in Germany, warning them she was a danger to herself. She was hospitalized for 3 weeks in a psychiatric clinic, but nothing changed. By summer 2007, Christine had returned to Sweden, this time for good. In early 2008, she reappeared in Thorne's life with shocking news. Christine claimed she had a child by him. She said she had become pregnant during their relationship, but due to her fragile state, she gave the baby up for adoption. Thorne was confused. The dates didn't add up. Whenever he asked details, like the baby's birth date or place, Christine dodged the questions. It became clear her story was a fabrication. Still, she tried to use this imaginary child as a way to stay in his life, even claiming the child had a genetic illness that might force the adoptive parents to contact Thorne someday. But by then, Thorne was already living with Emma and her children, and building a new family. He eventually cut all contact with Christine, telling her firmly to move on. Outwardly, she pretended to accept it. Inwardly, she was furious. She promised herself she would not be abandoned again. And she began plotting revenge. Police only began to seriously consider Christine after Thorne mentioned, during questioning, that he had an ex who was a bit crazy. At first, he hadn't even thought of her. He believed she had gone back to Germany. But when detectives told him their main lead was that the attacker was a woman, Christine's name surfaced. What Thorne didn't know was that Christine had stayed in Sweden, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When investigators showed Emma a photo of Christine in the hospital, she immediately identified her as the attacker. Once Emma pointed her out, authorities moved quickly. Christine Schurer was tracked down and arrested in Germany, then extradited to Sweden. News spread quickly. The prime suspect had been found. Newspapers across the country covered it, and many felt relief that justice was finally near. In her first statement, Christine denied everything. Police searched an apartment she had rented in Sweden. Inside, they found clothes, personal items, phones, and most importantly, her laptop. Among her clothes was a coat matching the description given by the witness who saw a figure dressed in black that night. The coat was sent for analysis, but it showed no traces of blood or hair from the victims. Police believed Christine had meticulously cleaned it, scrubbing away every trace. But her laptop told another story. Investigators uncovered dozens of photos of Emma and her children. They found a detailed floor plan of Emma's home with disturbing notes about the interior. Her search history revealed an obsession. She had been stalking Emma online and researching how to cover up a crime. Police also discovered Christine's diary, filled with hatred toward Emma and her children. Inside were the family's address, the children's daily routines, and the exact times Emma and Thorne left for and returned from work. Christine had been gathering information for months, meticulously planning her attack. To her, if she couldn't have Thorne, no one would. On top of that, investigators found a shoe in her apartment that matched the footprint at the crime scene, and security footage from Arboga's train station showed Christine both arriving and leaving the city on the day of the murders. With Emma's testimony, the physical evidence, and her digital trail, police knew they had more than enough to convict. Even if Christine never confessed, on July 29th, 2008, 3 months after the crime, Christine Schurer's trial began. The courtroom was stunned by her behavior. She showed no remorse, no fear of consequences. She waved and smiled at people as if the trial were a performance. When prosecutors displayed crime scene photos, including pictures of Emma's children before the attack, Christine laughed out loud. Her chilling reaction raised questions. Was she truly this cold, or suffering from a mental disorder? Her defense requested a psychiatric evaluation. Christine had previously spent time in a clinic after a suicide attempt, but she had refused psychiatric evaluation earlier in the investigation. This time, it was carried out. The results shocked everyone. Christine was declared fully sane, capable of understanding her actions. She was not mentally ill, she was simply cold, calculating, and cruel. Still, she continued to deny everything. Her defense argued the evidence was unreliable. No murder weapon was found, no DNA at the scene linked her directly. They insisted there was no solid proof. But then, a key witness came forward. A woman who had once shared an apartment with Christine told police that she owned a toolkit. Around the time of the crime, her hammer went missing. She asked Christine about it, but the hammer was never found. The timing was no coincidence. Prosecutors were convinced it was the weapon Christine used in the attack. The prosecution built its case around a combination of circumstantial evidence, witness testimony, and Emma's own words. More than 40 people testified in court. Among them, the man who saw a woman in black outside the house, the former roommate who lost her hammer, and of course, Emma herself. Investigators presented Christine's laptop as evidence, filled with photos of Emma and her children, detailed floor plans of their home, and internet searches on how to erase traces of a crime. They also displayed the footprint from the scene, which matched sneakers found in Christine's apartment. During the trial, Emma recalled even more fragments of the attack. She described how she fell to the ground and tried to get up while Christine continued striking her. She remembered the helplessness, the horror of not being able to protect her own children. With the overwhelming evidence and testimony, the jury had no doubt. They unanimously found Christine Schurer guilty on all charges. She was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. She was also ordered to pay Emma 100,000 Swedish kroner, around $9,000, in compensation. Christine's lawyers tried to appeal, but the court rejected the request. In March 2012, she was transferred to a women's prison in Vesta, Germany, where she continues to serve her sentence. Meanwhile, Emma's road to recovery was long and painful. Her physical wounds eventually healed, but the emotional scars would remain forever. With Thorne's constant support, she slowly began to rebuild her life. Nicholas, devastated by the loss of his children, also found a way forward. He eventually remarried and had a daughter named Morali. In 2010, Emma and Thorne married. They later had 2 more children, who grew up learning about their older siblings, Max and Saga. Step by step, the family managed to move forward. But the memory of that horrific night and the lives of the 2 little ones taken far too soon would never fade. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. Did you find this content interesting? If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Leave us a comment and share this video with others. See you in the next one.